Yo, no need to wait forever to do this. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, goddamn. Hello, hello, can you hear me? Oh, god damn it. Alright. Okay. It's going through just fine. It says I'm going through just fine. Oh boy. There we go. Hello? Hello? Okay. Looks like it is working now. It is not showing it properly on Streamlabs, but so long as you guys can hear me. What's up, guys? So, we've got a good couple of things that we got to talk about. We got a couple different animes here, and I can add more as we kind of need. But as far as specific things for the animes go, I think what will help us a lot is just hitting some kind of reliable power scaling for a level up system where you set up, where we give you maybe points. You have a certain amount of anime bullshit points, and at the beginning of the game we start you off level 3 with them, and you have 3 different levels worth you can put into where you can have high Dragon. I looked a little bit at the Naruto one. I didn't have enough time to go into the Dragon Ball Z one as well that I was sent. I'm going to try to keep it in Pathfinder. I know a little bit of 5e, but not nearly enough to try to do a system around. But what I do have is kind of how my sport talent system works from Mad King, where you pick a superpower that is outside of your class and outside of your system. And this is kind of how it works, where as you go up through the levels, you say, I want 1 level in damage, then I increase the range, then I increase damage again, I add an area of effect, there's a special effect added, and so on and so forth. I would count Avatar. There is, however, the specific Avatar role-playing system coming through. And I actually supported the Kickstarter on that, so we will have the Avatar system when the books are printed and sent out. So we will hopefully be doing that soon. But as far as these specific ones go, so say we have this level up thing here, you have a general emitter style, I shoot fireballs at people, I have a control over fire quirk. We start out the game where we say you start with damage and it starts at 1d4. Your second level, you put a level into it and your range increases from a touch attack to say 30 feet. Pendragon system. I'll have to look into that. And then you say you want to increase your damage, so I would say then 1d6. Then you add an area of effect where it's a 15, say a 15-foot cone, or a 10-foot box. So 4 squares in totality. You add a special effect where it burns, and that does 1d4 points of damage for 1d4 turns. And as you continue going, you know, if you lean heavily into the special effects side of things, your time for your burn increases, the burn damage increases, you add heat exhaustion effects or things like that, you add minuses to enemies to dodge your abilities. The other way to kind of go about this that I've used before in things, and kind of how Tafa's current My Hero system works, is you have specifics in all of these. So Zhao is a great example where I start with base unarmed damage, but then I have put a point into it so it is 1 size larger, and that was a single level up. never did anything with ranges or area of effects, but I've got a special effect. And it is an increase in size. And that only costs one level up point because it's a new ability. And then my crit reroll, or my crit saving, is considered a different special effect. My addition to damage is a single special effect, and all of these things as you go require the single level up point instead of saying that your overall power level is level 8. You would say I have level 2 damage, level 1 in additional damage, adding to hit, crit saving, increasing in size category, transformation, the borrowing of talents from Little Zhao to Big Zhao. And it all... I find that the system of each individual branch starts at level 1 and levels up from it. Snowballs a little too hard, and it leans very heavily on the idea of having a superpower that's a little more open-ended, that just allows you to add all these extra BS powers. Because with Zhao is a great example. If I spent all of my points to increase damage, I would be dealing maybe 2d6 damage. Whereas if I have my base damage and then I add 1 point to increase size category, that increases my damage. And then I have 1 point spent in just straight adding damage, that increases my damage. And then I have 1 point spent in increased critical modifier, that increases my damage. And then I have 1 point spent in extra feats, that can be used to increase my damage. And it becomes much more efficient to just come up with a new power every time. And so, for our purposes, I would recommend that we have a straight, you have to do so much, you got to get so much XP to go from level 1 to level 2, so much XP to level 2 to level 3, and it would run in tandem to your character's level, where that is then they're mundane, you're a rogue, and you have your sneak attacks, you have your stealth bonuses, you have your bleeds, or whatever else. And then on top of that, you can throw fireballs at people, and that is your anime power, that is your magic ability, that is your Nen ability if we're doing Hunter x Hunter, that is your superpower if we're doing Fairy Tail. That would be your named power. For that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Set a level of how many special effects. Yeah, Dracon, and that was kind of what I was getting at, is in a system like that, you would want to start, you don't want to start with a level 1 talent, because your level 1 talent, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm a pyromancer, I can throw fireballs or whatever, your level 1 talent would literally be 1d4 points of damage that you can just touch someone with. So you would have to start kind of innately, where it's like, okay, if I am a fire emitter style superpower, I would be able to, I would have a little bit of range, a little bit of area of effect, and a decent amount of damage. So you would have maybe like 1, 2, 5 total levels. And that is absolutely true, Dracon. Another thing that we do have to really worry about avoiding here, and that I see a lot of people fall into, is starting themselves out at level 1, right? You're in your My Hero Academia campaign, and you say, my quirk is time travel. And everything is then fucked. Also, Dracon, thanks for resubscribing. Sorry I missed that one. So we have to have somewhere around here, our starting power scale has to be reasonable. And we have to have there has to be something inwrit into the system to make sure that nobody power plays and starts the game off by saying, well, my quirk is deity. And what that means is that I get to do things that deities get to do. Because your 4th level. You know, you're a 15-year-old high schooler going into the My Hero world. You are taking the Hunter x Hunter exam for the first time. If you already had the powers of a god, you're not starting the campaign at the same point as everybody else. The drawback system, I utilized that in Mad King a little bit, where if you forsake control of your sport talent or total control of your sport talent, you get immediate powers based on that. Make a ranking system. So a ranking system would be good. The problem with a ranking system is that you know, me or whoever's building the system, we would have to sit down and, man, we would have to list out every single superpower we can possibly think of and then find on a scale of, you know, 1 to 10 where we think it fits. And it would also be one of those kind of disingenuous things, because you could totally start out with fire throwing, you know, the ability to control fire. Ooh. Dutch Dog, I'm not sure if I would put that. You could start that as a time traveling power. The inherent problem that starts to come in, though, is what becomes the 2nd level ability. Does your entire time traveling power simply roll down to rerolls, or are you eventually going to want to actually time travel? And as far as I can tell you firsthand, because I tried for a little bit with the god powers in Mad King to have Kronos, the god of time, give you a time controlling ability where you could go back a certain number of rounds. I found very fast that not only I as the DM can't remember where people's positioning was 3 rounds ago, the players can't remember where they were either. Some specific skills. Yeah, we could very easily set something up like that. And I guess what I could show you guys a little bit of here is we could go to my Google Docs, and I have my Modern Warfare system, and it's a completely different role-playing system. And what the entire thing is instead of doing a class, you have talents. And so what you do is when you start game, you start with, you know, all these are basic talents where you have your combat expertise, you have your feats and powers, and you need this cavalry to then get cavalry master to then get delay pain, or you need cavalry to get cover hopper or fleet or open country. So we could very easily build a system where we take these kind of base talents and then add them to anime superpowers. It is a lot more work, though, to do that with specific talents. What I find a lot easier, especially when you go for a campaign where you're going to want to be maybe a little heavier in role play, is to simply take a base system, 5e, Pathfinder, 3.5, GURPS, Fate, whatever it may be, and you simply say, all right, you still get all your fighter bonuses, you get your wizard bonuses, but then on top of that, you can develop a Nen ability if we're doing Hunter x Hunter. If we're doing Fairy Tail, you can say, all right, you start out with your basic class. You say, good example is the guy who expands really big and paints on his chest, and his paintings become real. Right? You could say his base class starts as a bard, and so he gets some bardic inspirations going on, but then he has his painting abilities, and instead of focusing on gaining real XP to level up his bardic abilities, he would spend most of his time purpose training for his painting. And so if we were to do an anime like Fairy Tail, I would inspire a system where you would have a dual leveling. However, every time you level up, you choose whether to focus on your superpower or whether to focus on your base humanity, what you are in your class, your ability to, your fighting, your fighter, your barbarian, your bard, or anything like that. Now, of course, for the purpose of Fairy Tale, that time I got Reincarnated Slime would actually be really good for it. For the purpose like Fairy Tale and Hunter x Hunter, I would say that magic classes, sorcerers, wizards, witches, warlocks, those would probably be banned, and you would have to choose a physical class like we do in the My Hero Academia campaign. And then your casting ability, as we would say, would come exclusively from, in Hunter x Hunter, your Nen ability, and from Fairy Tale, your specified magical power. That time I got Reincarnated as a Slime would be a great one to just simply be like, hey, look, here's Pathfinder, we're jumping into the world a little bit, and every now and then, to sprinkle in just a little bit of extra fun, we add a naming system. And we say, yeah, Rimmiru's come around, he has decided that you are worthy, and that what you did on this specific mission is a great thing, and he has bestowed some of his power onto you through naming. And what that means specifically for you is that you have opened up this specific extra superpower. And then we go into where it wouldn't be a dual leveling system. You would simply have a set power. And the DM could then sit there and say, Rimmiru has named you, you are a troll, and you get the ability to utilize fire. And that means that on any of your attacks, you can imbue it with 2d6 fire damage currently. And the next time that you do a really great thing and you get some big ups from Rimmiru and he gives you some more power, the DM can then sit down and be like, alright, you have unlocked the Fire Tornado ability. Yes, there is of course, in that time I got Reincarnated by a Slime, the caveat of that. For the purpose of a tabletop game, we would have to modify that, I feel, a little bit. Maybe where some lesser named characters give you names, which then gives you small abilities, and you work your way kind of up the chain of command to eventually the grand totality of Rimmiru and what ability he would then give you. Other than that, it would work absolutely, in my opinion, as a standard role-playing game. The problem that I run into, we'll just kind of maybe talk down each one of these specifically for a little bit. The problem that I've got with that time I got Reincarnated as a Slime is that they don't have a lot of places in the world named. They don't have a whole terrible bunch of, I don't know, motivations known, or realistically what a lot of these side characters are doing besides their purpose when it comes to their kind of town building utility. I feel like it would be difficult as a DM to, it lacks lore Dracon. That's exactly right. It would be hard as a DM to outfit interesting missions that do not feel like, oh, this named character that has some funny lines in the anime needs mushrooms harvested, so you're going to go down into the caves and you're going to fight some cave spiders to collect so many mushrooms. I feel like that time I got Reincarnated Slime might start feeling like you're just grinding at World of Warcraft, you know? And I have found that that's very, very toxic to a tabletop game. It winds up making people not want to play very quick. The problem, it's a very similar problem that I have with Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale has a lot of places named. Fairy Tale has a lot of characters. However, Fairy Tale is very all over the place, and the lack of proper rules of engagement as well as true motivations for most characters, I feel would leave the campaign the campaign wanting as well. Gundam would be a really fun one. This one is very different from all the others on the list in the sense that you don't have superpowers, but you have your mech. I feel like this would be a dual leveling system where a talent system like what I have set out for my Modern Warfare campaign would be very useful, where you have what you as yourself can do. You know how to better fight in melee. You're a really good sniper in your mech. You have great stealth abilities. You know how to utilize your stuff to a much more efficient degree. And then you also have your Gundam on top of that, and how much money you can put into it and how many bells and whistles you can put on. So the result better feel for gameplay. Let me see here. Let me read through you guys for just a second. Yeah, Sword Art Online is... We could talk about Sword Art Online for a little bit, even though I did not put that one down. That's one I've watched at least the first season of. Unfortunately, Bleach I have not seen, so I can't talk too terribly well about it. One Piece I feel like would suffer from a lot of the very similar problems that Fairy Tail would. There is, don't get me wrong, there's 100% a plot to One Piece, but be damned if I can honestly figure it out, you know? And if you're not part of the main crew, or at least somewhat adjacent to the main crew, building the outside world would be difficult, I feel. And Naruto makes a great one. Naruto, I feel I would run very similar to the Hunter x Hunter style thing. However, the only difference, of course, instead of having your enchantment, admission, manipulation, specialization, conjuration, and transmutation, you would have your taijutsu, your genjutsu, and your nenjutsu. And every time you level up, you would get... You could just straight up say, everybody, for the purpose of this campaign, is either a fighter or a rogue. And every time you level up, you get your normal class bonuses. Yeah. You are right, Dracon. And your Kenjutsu. But then you also get to specialize where you can have, say you're very poor, you decide to be very poor in Genjutsu, but you increase your level in it, and increasing your actual character level, your fighter level, or your rogue level, or whatever it is, would just count as upgrading your taijutsu. Naruto's world is really good, and what a big up one that you have for Naruto is a lot of the side characters and very well named characters and very beloved characters go home after some of their big arcs. You know, Gaara and them go back to the Land of Sand. And so if you're traveling between places, it becomes very easy for a DM to throw in named NPCs that you guys as viewers would like, that players in the campaign would like, and it would be very great. How I would handle the chakra pools, so in Naruto itself is, of course, chakra can be expanded upon. You're not actually, it's not like you're born with a set limit. And so throwing it on as something where it is basically a mana pool, just like Drayden is saying, where you have a certain number of times a day, a certain number of times an hour, a certain number of times around, a certain amount of times per combat, a certain amount of times per week, depending on the ability. I feel like that would be rather easy to implement, and it would simply come with leveling up each specific jutsu. Because how they kind of phrase it, from at least my remembrance, it's been a little while since I've watched Naruto, it would be very easy. As they increase their ability to process jutsus, the chakra requirement to actually maintain and to cast them goes down. And so it could just be something that passively levels up with each jutsu respectively. So if you're someone where your ninjutsu is super strong and all you're doing is you're throwing fireballs all around the place like an absolute madman, and your genjutsu really suffers and you can't do these hallucinations, your replacement jutsu even isn't very good, it would simply have a higher chakra cost. And so to say, a level 5 player has a chakra pool of 10 would be relatively easy, and then simply say, all right, well, your genjutsu sucks shit. So in order to cast any of your 2 basic genjutsu abilities that you have, those each cost 3 chakra out of your chakra pools. Whereas your shadow clone jutsu, the one thing that you've done your entire life and you have spent time to perfect, the casting of that only costs 1 chakra point per shadow clone produced or something. I don't feel like chakra would be too terribly much of an issue there. And it would come down, it would be the exact same thing as Hunter x Hunter, where I would... How exactly would I do that? I am not sure if I would let players decide what their affinity is in Hunter x Hunter. I think I might make them roll for it. And have a heavy weight, because they say right in the thing that enchanters and physical enhancers are a lot more common, and specialization is, the rarest of them all. So I might put a weighted die on it, say a D100, there's a 40% chance of enchanter, a 5% chance of specialist, and then the rest are just kind of fiddled in through there relatively evenly. Because the inherent problem with allowing a player to decide what affinity they have is that just about everybody would choose specialization and give themselves some ridiculously silly Nen power that would be super hard to balance, like time travel. So I think that I would do a roll system. So maybe put over here a roll for affinity where you go 1 to 20. Let's give it a little bit more. We'll say 1 to 30 gives you an enchantment affinity. We'll say 31 to since it's pretty rare, I think Retro Knight, I think as far as we're saying with a rolling of affinities, that if you have everybody sit down and they roll a D100 and say I only do 31 to 36, and that's specialization. If every single player rolls in between 31 and 36, just that 5% chance, shoot, I'd give it to them. It's who am I to let the dice not decide? And you would need something right around here where they say right in Hunter x Hunter that the specialization is extremely rare. I think a 5% chance might even be too high. There are, yeah, exactly, sloppy lines. 5% specialist. Then we say 19% for the other 4. And that gives a 30% chance for enchantment, which is straight up supposed to be the biggest right out the gate. Most people are going to be there. And it doesn't mean, as well in Hunter x Hunter, the big thing too, when they do their one episode of explanation about it, just because you have an enchantment affinity does not mean that you can't learn the emission or manipulation or the transmutation, conjuration, or even a specialization. It simply makes it harder to do so. And so as I would go through with this, we can do with our kind of dual leveling up system, while you're leveling up your physical body, your fighter class, your rogue class, your barbarian class, you also have then your Nen ability power. And as you level that up, you simply say, if it is your affinity power, it costs on a power scaling of 1. If it is an adjacent, it's on a power scaling of 2, so it takes double the points to level up a non-affinity power than it does your affinity power. If it's a tertiary power, maybe it's on a power scaling of 4. And then if it is your opposite, boy, I can't spell anything today, put it on a really high power scaling, say 8, where it takes 8 levels to go across the way instead. Yeah, exactly, Sloppy Lines. And so you can have it sit just as easily with that, where it becomes so incredibly heavily incentivized to find something within your power type to go for, that it becomes just about, and then make it just about impossible to do something that is on the opposite side, unless they're very, very devoted to it. It would also then throw in the idea of training time. For My Hero Academia, of course, we have the downtime cycles. And that would simply, you know, however much time you spend working on your Nen affinity, on your specific superpower, or working on upgrades for your Gundam, would then determine how many level up points you would have in that dual system. Dracon, as far as going back to the Naruto thing, adding in different bonuses where you're doing your clan bonuses, bloodline bonuses, you're adding in schooling bonuses, whether you are a classically trained ninja going through your village's ninja school, or if you are belonging to a small sub-village that does not get that kind of opportunity. All of those things we can provide different bonuses for. If you're traditionally schooled, you would then have more points to be able to put into your genjutsu and your nenjutsu or anything like that. Whereas if you were from an outside, maybe your taijutsu or any other kind of physical attributes or talents would be more prevalent. Yeah, Sloppy Lines. Going back to the Hunter x Hunter, it was sloppily done. Where, you know, they say the ability to, you know, rock, paper, scissors, create a gigantic power ball and just spike it into somebody is an enchantment ability. Whereas also an enchantment ability would be making your sword extra super sharp and catch on fire to slash up people better. Putting those in the same category does make it difficult. However, it is the system that Hunter x Hunter has given to me, and I think that it would feel very disingenuous to simply take, like, the schools of magic from Pathfinder, to take abjuration, conjuration, evocation, and to put them down there and to categorize the player's chosen Nen abilities and Nen powers and try to categorize them into other schools of magic that might be better defined. I think that it would have to be based on a good faith thing where you can't loop your way around making an enchantment ability a manipulation ability, like a blatant manipulation ability, or you can't make blatant conjuration into emission. But I think that allowing for a good amount of play in the system, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that. Kind of liking the idea of a Hunter x Hunter one as we continue to talk about it. It's definitely, I'm freshest on it out of all of these. Shoot, I haven't watched Gundam for at least a decade. I watched it back in, like, high school. Fairy Tail I watched relatively recently, but because it was rather sporadic and broken as far as what they want their plot to be, I didn't pay too terribly close attention to it. And I am not up to date on the latest season of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, even though I've heard that it's crazy and went really well. The other big thing that we have to ask, and it was the problem with That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, but I don't feel like it is actually a problem in Hunter x Hunter, is the campaign mission. I feel like Hunter x Hunter gets us in a very good position, like My Hero Academia does, where there is a definitive structure to at least the first necessary steps of doing a D&D campaign. Now, of course, you don't have to be part of the Chimera Ants. You don't have to be part of Greed Island, even, in Hunter x Hunter. But you do have to go through the Hunter exam. And so starting out the campaign with something that is very rigid and structured and has a certain number of pieces that you can throw in, you can throw in a multitude of different teachers and specific things that they desire to teach you about and challenges based on that for the players to go through. I feel like that lends itself very heavily to a D&D campaign, because a really big problem when you get into things that are maybe a little too sandboxy, like a fairy tale, is that once you get in to an absolute sandbox, players in Dungeons & Dragons have a tendency to murder hobo if they don't have at least a beginning guiding track, something to put them on a certain direction. And I feel like Hunter x Hunter has a very nice beginning track with the Hunter exam, allowing players to get together, form their party together, figure out who they want to play and what kind of personalities they want to have and what their interactions are going to be, while still in a rigid and structured system that gives them adequate challenges, fun challenges, interesting challenges, sometimes deadly challenges, and builds up the party before the technical campaign starts. And I find that I do this with just about every single campaign that I run, is I throw in just kind of what I call the tutorial, where the players get in and it's like, hey, look, this is the first dungeon. This is the first city. This is where you are. This is what you're doing, and this is why you want to do it. And then you get a couple of sessions in, they get through that tutorial, and they know a little bit more about the world. They know kind of what they're wanting to do. They got some quests set out for themselves. They've got some overarching ideas as to what they want to accomplish, and then they can move forth into that open world with a little bit more confidence and in a much more collected manner. And so I would start it at the Hunter exam. I would say something along the lines of the party relatively knows each other or can already very well know each other. They can be childhood best friends or from the same town. They went to school together. They have the same purpose of going to the Hunter exam. They both want to make enough money to do X thing or whatever. But regardless as to what each individual's desire is, they start off with a ticket to go try out. They start off at that kind of beginning room, making it to the Hunter exam and going in. So, and yeah, Naruto's a very good one that that gives to that as well, because you can even start them off before the getting exams. You can start a Naruto-based campaign in school, basically, kind of towards their last maybe month or so of school, where they're focusing up, they're working on their kind of specialty things, and then you get to go around and interact with whoever your classmates are, whether that is putting you into, kind of like we do with My Hero, putting you into the actual show's deal, or if the DM makes a whole slew of new ninjas and you come up in the world, say you're the graduating class just after Naruto or something. And that is very true. Very true, Drake. Joining a guild in Fairy Tail would help give it a little bit of rigidity. However, I still feel Fairy Tail is so open-ended that that even getting into a guild sometimes is a little bit fast and loosely played with, and what exactly the guild's motivations and desires are would not necessarily help, unless you were to specifically make a new custom guild that is a more rigid structure than what I've seen in the anime. But yeah, Demon Slayer, the survival test, is a fantastic example of that as well. Unfortunately, Go Commit Dead, I have not watched Black Clover, but I've heard it's good. I might have to go pick that up. I unfortunately, you guys got just about one of the worst people at D&D House to talk about broad animes with. I have a very, very limited amount that I've seen. But back to Demon Slayer, since we haven't talked about that one yet. Demon Slayer would be a very interesting one to do, in the sense that we see magical powers. However, they are all in these breathing techniques. I'm not going to try to spell that. With the breathing powers, we do see that they are relatively limited. I think the fire form, or the water form, has like 8 breathing techniques. It might start to feel a little restrictive as you guys, as a campaign would continue through Demon Slayer, to limit yourself to 8 or 10 individual sword techniques, even if they have relatively broad scopes. It would be a cool one, and it was one that I'd forgotten about. Thank you guys for bringing it up, because it's another one where it's got very good definite structure. There is not only the Demon Slayer, the survival exam, where you go onto the mountain and you have to come out alive, and you can form your party there. You can go in as a bit of a party, however you want to do it. But you go in basically with nothing, and you would probably come out with maybe 1 or 2 breathing techniques begun. You also have the added benefit where there is a defined villain whose name we know, and at least whose base motivations are pretty decently understood. The world building has been pretty good in Demon Slayer, and so the idea of adding in towns and how people in towns would act and react to you, it would not be very hard for a DM, I feel. So new style that a character develops on their own breathing is very late in the story. Yeah, and I would not, I wouldn't shy away from allowing a player to create their own breathing technique. What I would say, however, is just like how there's 8 forms of the water breathing, I would say that you have to come to me as the DM before gameplay even begins with your 8 defined powers that you are going to discover and how they relate to this breathing technique and why they make sense in the world. So that way you don't show up and be like, ah, yes, I have the time travel breathing technique, and I'm going to use that for you guys in just about every single OP example there is, because time travel destroys everything it touches, in my opinion. And it's kind of nice, the idea of doing that with a Demon Slayer, because you put a little bit of work onto the players. And I like that for 2 reasons. I like that because then I, as the DM, have to do just a little bit less. But also, I find a lot of times if you give players that little bit of freedom, and they go through it in a relatively responsible way, they have a lot more fun playing through it as well. Ooh, Dragon Master, what are your breathing techniques? What are the styles? I would love to know those. You can just give me some general once-overs on it. But, yeah, so long as you don't let the player fall into the inevitable fallacy of, oh, yeah, well, you know, water has 8 breathing styles, but my origami breathing has 32 styles. And here are all 32 powers laid out. You can't let that happen, because you're inevitably going to have the player that's not necessarily as confident with building their own powers or wanting to build their own powers come up and be like, you know what? Give me the lightning. I'm good with that. Shadow and snow. Ooh. Interesting, interesting. Why snow instead of ice? That's my biggest one. The shadow breathing makes a whole lot of sense. I totally get that. And snow breathing, I think I understand where you're coming from with it. But why go for snow and not ice? Is my question. Yeah, that's exactly go commit dead. Quantum breathing. That's right, Quinn. I feel like Demon Slayer would be very good for that, especially because as far as an in tandem thing go, you have, you know, your power 1 through 8. And whereas you level it up, and whereas 1 might be, say, your water wheel. I think that's actually the second form, isn't it? Let me put it down there, just because I'm a bit like that. And that is a straight whirlwind attack. Damages all within the 5 feet of your blade. I feel like there's a lot you can do with that. Where right out the gate, you're already limited to 5 feet. Say you want to level up. Say you level up and you don't care so terribly much about the rest of your things. And you say, no, you know what? My water wheel, I increase to 10 feet. Suddenly you can hit a wider area with it. Next level, increased damage. And say maybe your starting damage with it is an extra 1d6. Now your extra damage is 2d6. And every time you put a level into it, you get 1 extra d6. So whereas you are limited to 8, 10 moves, I can't remember exactly how many breathing techniques there are for it, for each style, you can totally still continue to level up those individual ones, which then make characters like Zenitsu, exactly, the Zenitsu method. It makes characters like him make a lot more sense. Because if you were trying to come into the Demon Slayer world and being like, okay, each breathing technique is a power that needs to be unlocked individually, and it simply is what it is. The damage boost is the same, and all of that. Able to support having both big eyes and a small mouth. That is right, Cthulhu. It's in fact a necessity. Okay, let's see. Here's the snow. I'm actually very interested in this. Ice is very sharp and jagged and hard. Snow is more flowing and gentle. Use how? Because the gimmick. This is fighting style. Slowing down. Oh, okay. So it's more of a blizzard style. So it's not like a straightforward elemental damage style breathing style. It's much more of a effect-based style. I like that. Yeah, thank you, Travis. Where was I talking about here? Yeah, the Zenitsu method. So then every level up, say you start going through, shoot, which one was Waterfall 6, I think? So your Waterfall Smash, you unlock it, but you don't put a whole bunch of points into it. It's still available to you, but it's nowhere near as powerful as your Water Wheel that you've spent 8, 10 level up points in. I think Demon Slayer is a very good one for setting up a system for, because we can have our straight powers. Forms, example of chain breathing, where the forms are attack chains. Drayden, that's a very interesting idea. And that is why I like the idea for Demon Slayer, and for all of these. For Hunter x Hunter even, you know, you let them roll for their affinity, they get an admission affinity, and they come up with their own Nen power. Things though like Hunter x Hunter and Fairy Tail are much more open-ended, which for a DM makes it difficult, because you inevitably have players that show up, and one player only wants to be a physical enhancer, they just want to get stronger, they just want to punch things hard, and then you have the character that shows up and they want to control time. And it begins to be, it gets hard to balance between players, which is another very important thing that we have to remember here, is that each player, if a player shows up and says, I want to do this chain breathing, that has to be balanced with snow breathing, that has to be balanced with water breathing in one way or another. One can't be absolutely, obviously better than the other, because then inevitably you're going to wind up with one player choosing one, the other player choosing the other, not necessarily knowing better, and they're not going to have fun because the player that simply has the better superpower is going to just stomp all over them every time and outshine them. I do like that a lot. I like the snow breathing idea. And yes, Drayden, setting some dice scales is a very important thing to start doing. If we're going to use Pathfinder as a base system, it's going to be a D20 system utilizing all of the dice, which simply means that as you go down for a Demon Slayer kind of thing, if you set a damage, you set a universal standard. Everybody starts at a single D6 on adding to damaging abilities. You start out with a universal debuff ability, where every single debuff provides at base a -2 to rolls. And then you have your scaling, where 1d6 goes to 1d8, goes to 1d10, goes to 2d6, goes to 2d8, goes to 2d10, so on and so forth. Your debuffs go from 2 to 4 to 8 to 10, and they might go a little bit ways away where one has a bigger jump than another, but it is still these simple jumps. Yeah, they do have tables for spell damage averaging per level for Pathfinder as well. They also have base monster statistics per level, so you can set basic encounters based on how many hit points, or how many, how high of a level your monster is, how many special abilities they should have, how many feats they should have. And I utilize those charts very heavily, and I know that Tafa has as well, because I can see when we level up, like Walker's healing and decay abilities, they follow those general spell rules for Pathfinder, and keeps it on the damage scaling. And so what I would do in the case of a Demon Slayer campaign is I would set each thing. So say you have the Beast Sense, the second form of Beast Breathing, where he's got that big old radar. You set it at first level as a close spell, which is 15 foot plus 5 per level. Then you level it up again, and it goes to 30 foot plus 10 per level. And so on and so forth. And so your radius of your detection, and maybe even slap on when you get to 4th level, where it gives you a +4 on perception. Ooh, I can't write the plus. You get a 4 bonus on perception checks. And then the next level goes to increase range again, and then the next level increases your perception bonus, and then it increases your range, and then it increases your perception bonus. And then how the Beast Radar, the second form of Beast Breathing, goes is you simply continue leveling it up, and when you ping out, you go to that radius, and you get a free perception roll on everything there, as if you would have line of sight on it. So things that are, if you have a breathing technique, if you're a shadow breather, and the third form of shadow breathing, say, is invisibility for a short period of time, the Beast Sense wouldn't inherently overpower it. It would be whoever is better, whoever has spent more time training that skill and that specific counter skill. It would be very interesting to see in a Demon Slayer campaign if somebody chose a shield breathing, or like a turtle breathing technique, where all of their things, instead of dealing extra damage or giving the enemy debuffs, would just straight give them like defensive bonuses or be used to block powerful attacks. Mirror breathing would be a very good example of something like that. where you start reflecting. And just after analyzing DC calculations for 5E, so assumption roll 10. How to alter numbers for incorporating an extra stat. Yes, and that is very important. If you utilize a already existing system, though, if you're utilizing a 5e or a Pathfinder, the nicest thing is that since they have done those for you, you're good. You know, you can understand them and you can see how they set them. But also, if you're maybe a lazier DM, maybe we're just setting this up. Maybe we set up and do a Gundam one-shot where I just set up some quick and dirty rules using the Pathfinder's base system, give the players some mechs and let them just fucking go at it for a little while and just absolutely annihilate each other. And then when it's done, it's done. You don't necessarily have to understand where they get those numbers from. You just got to follow the formula. Dragon Master, I would love to see them. And as a matter of fact, we can go to the Demon Slayer. We can spend a little bit of time on that right now. Because I feel like as we're talking, where I'm sitting, I'm not sure exactly where you guys are sitting on this. If I am going to spend time on making some specific rules to make a system work, I think I'm going to do either Hunter x Hunter or Demon Slayer. And Demon Slayer actually sounds a lot easier. Dragon Master, I do not think you can. However, are you in the Discord? If so, you can just private message it to me. I'm pretty sure that I did not allow those to go through. Let me see. Shoot, take you guys right to it. You know, I don't know where the thing is. What would your guys' vote be on that? Let's actually let's go back to here. I'll take a little poll. Start a prediction here, and we will say which one? Simply. And we've got Demon Slayer, and we got Hunter x Hunter. We'll put her on for a good 10 minutes, let you guys vote. Oh, set it up as a prediction, didn't set it up as a actual poll. That's okay. Hunter x Hunter does get way convoluted down the line. The nice thing that starts to come in, though, right, is, like, personally, in Hunter x Hunter, I love the hell out of Hunter x Hunter. Until you get to the Chimera Ants. I thought the Chimera Ant arc was hot garbage. I thought a lot of the characters that they brought in, I thought a lot of the things that they brought in were fantastic. I didn't think the main villain was compelling. I didn't think the storyline was very good. I thought a lot of side characters that were super awesome and should have gotten maybe a little more time in the sun didn't get what they were deserving. Hot take indeed. Yes, yeah, I am Ian. And it's almost why when you guys are going through this poll, I can see that we're much heavier leaning onto Demon Slayer right now, which is totally fair, and I completely understand where you guys are coming from. I feel like Hunter x Hunter is still a very viable one, almost because I want to go through the first couple of things and then maybe spend a little bit more time in the middle or outside of even Greed Island, perhaps. Number of forms for a style needed to match a die size. Also gives a stepping ladder. Yeah, sort of, except for the fact where that kind of falls apart, where if you start adding in buffs, debuffs, special abilities, I think the dice scaling should be kept to damaging abilities. And I think all damaging abilities should start, if it's an AoE, you start with your basic damage, where the AoE is the special ability. If it is like the waterfall, where it's a single crash onto a single target, then you get the extra dice damage, and you start going up the damage dice tree. Exactly. That's sloppy lines. That's what I mean. For a hunter, I would run the same base. Might even put you in the exact same class, the same hunter exam class as Gon and Killua. Just change a couple of things to make sure that a couple more people graduate, aka the players themselves. And then from there, I would probably take it in completely different directions, focusing on maybe some of the side NPCs. You run into Not before he goes insane and loses all of his hair in the Chimera Ant series, because his power is super friggin' cool. And maybe your character goes and studies under him for a little bit in between those times and leaves before the Chimera Ant section. Or you do not gain enough power before that happens, so that he would not think to bring you. Something along those lines. Alright, let me open this up real quick, my guy. Alright, we're going to take a second, go off tangent to shadow breathing here. This is outfitted beautifully. So we have the first form, the Sneaking Shadow Strike, second form, Silent Night, third form, Looming Death, Fearful Slash. And this is 5e that it's made for. Okay, that is perfect. Shikigami, Shadow Blossom, Touch of the Abyss, and Void. So see, it's... and that's very interesting. Would we want to set it up in this sort of format here, where you start at first level, you have nothing, second level, you have nothing, third level, you get your first form of breathing? Or do we set it up in a way where you have your first through seventh forms, and those are separate, and when you reach third level, you choose one form out of 7 to begin with. And then as you level up your breathing technique, you can either unlock the following forms, or you continue increasing the ability, your existing forms. So let's see here. Sneaking Shadow Strike. The user hides themselves in positions and ambush the enemy on a successful. You can use a bonus action to deal an extra 1d6 damage to the creature. The amount of extra damage increases as you gain levels, as shown in the last column of the table. The extra going from 1d6 to 1d8 to 1d10 to 1d12 to 2d6 following normal damage die increases. I love this. I would, however, for Pathfinder specifically, I would simply turn this into sneak attack from the rogue ability, which gives you half your level in d6s, it gives an immediate damage scaling, and then it allows the players, if they level it up further, or in this kind of system where you can level it up further, allows them to focus on other aspects, like the stealth aspect, or adding extra little flavor bits to it for themselves. The second form, Silent Night, user suppresses their presence from the enemy, allowing them to move moved unnoticed for a deadly strike. Move in on. Oh, okay, I get it. The opponent must make a perception check against the user's stealth to locate the swordsman. If the creature fails, the user gains advantage on the attack and remains stealthed afterwards. That is, I'm liking these to the extent that they work very well as in a role-playing system. What I worry about for Demon Slayer specifically is it does seem like each... Yeah, it is basically... I guess it is the 5e sneak attack, basically. Pathfinder does it a little bit differently. I got a slight problem with your second form here, where it is not its own ability. The second form is utilized to enhance the first form, so you use them in tandem. I don't ever see that happening in Demon Slayer, is basically my problem with it. I see in Demon Slayer that each breathing form is its own specific ability. And I don't see them, unless you have a player specifically set up like Marcellia said, said the chain ability. I think it was Marcellius that had said the chain ability. I don't see him using them in tandem in super rapid succession. You know, it's usually each one is its own, clearly defined. Oh, Drayden. Drayden was the one who said it. Sorry. I got you, though. I see you now. Third form is the Looming Death Fearful Slash. Swordsman blends into the shadows around them, becoming a creature of the darkness. Their sudden strike from the dark and overall appearance may cause the creature to become frightened of the user. The creature hit by a successful attack must make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature becomes frightened. Perfect. Fail to save by 5 or more, they become stunned until their next turn. Premium. That is a perfect debuff ability. I love the hell out of it. It's got a DC that increases with your ability. I am not exactly sure. Of course, Charisma is the obvious choice. I guess you add your proficiency bonus for 5e, that's more than fine. For Pathfinder, I might change it to a primary stat. Because, like, for a Shadow Breathing, you would build a heavy dex thing, so having it as 10 plus dexterity, plus maybe half level or whatever, would work out great. I like that. I like the third form a lot. Fourth form being Shigigami. Ugh, my nose is plugged up and it makes it hard to say that. Swordsman lurks within the shadows, giving off an ominous presence. The shadows around them form the shadowy visage of Shimigami, using its scythe to strike the creature down as the swordsman strikes. The user can focus all their extra attacks into one on a successful hit. You deal an extra 1d6 damage for every extra attack you have. That needs a range added to it. I would add in, since it is a big sweeping scythe attack, I would give it 15 feet or an extra 5 feet for 5 levels. So 5 feet at 5th level, 10 feet at 10th level, 15 feet at 15th level, and 20 feet at 20th level. For this slash, I would allow it to hit, I would potentially even allow it to hit multiple targets. Your fifth form being Shadow Blossom. Using an attack action, the swordsman leaps from shadow to shadow, taking slashes at creatures within a 30-foot radius. Alright. Leaving open wounds in vital areas, using their extra attacks. Stance lasts 3 turns or until you choose to end it. As it ends, all creatures hit during the stance take 1d6 damage for every wound on them. Your breathing ends after this stance. I like that. I like that a lot. Strength Dex Con have more mechanical benefits than casting abilities. Oh, okay. That's fair, Drake. That is fair. Pathfinder starts coming into a bit of problems where ability score increases do not come quickly. And so having a one-stat character, you utilize most of your stats in most other ways, so having most of your major powers tied to a single stat would be good. If every single one of these abilities was tied to charisma, then I would agree very heavily that it doesn't necessarily matter if it's charisma or if it's wisdom or if it's dexterity or whatever. Because in Pathfinder, of course, you're using your dexterity to add to stealth rolls, you're adding it to your armor class, it's your dodge modifier, it helps you out with your initiative and stuff. It is a very important stat at base, but all the stats have their place. And so what I guess what I just like to see with every single superpower or every single extra thing is to tie him to a single stat. Basically reskin the fighter class. Okay, I get you. We have our Form of the Abyss. Using an attack action, the user is engulfed in shadows, completely blending into the dark and radiating a menacing presence. Creatures within 60 feet make a wisdom saving throw, and that is tied to charisma as well, which is good. If we're going to do charisma ties, we got to do charisma ties for all of them. On a failed save, creature becomes stunned, paralyzed for 2 turns before they are able to re-roll the save. Woo! Take 1d8 psychic damage until the effect ends. On a successful save, the creature takes half damage. In this form, enemies have disadvantage on attacking your shadowy form until the form ends in 1 minute. I like that. It's a very good, concise, you know everything that is involved in the power. And seeing that this is the 6th form and it comes at 18th level, it is more than appropriate for 5e. I keep going back to kind of how I think I would build this system, and how I would build this system would be giving you access to multiple forms at your choosing, nice and easily. Go Commit Dead, the next true My Hero Academia session is not next week or the week after, but the following week. So 3 weeks in totality. The next 2 weeks, we're either going to be doing something along this line, or we're going to be actually on camera at the table with a couple other players doing other My Hero content with Tafa's specific My Hero Academia system that he has made. We also, of course, have tomorrow New Albion and Wednesday Mad King should be going as usual. And so, any criticism that I can come up with for these higher level ones is just that I think that players in a Demon Slayer situation should have access to whichever form they desire first. So I would start it out where all forms have relatively equal effects at a level 1 ability, and then as they level that up specifically, they get to add either more power to that form or unlock the other forms. Yes, Drayden, I appreciate that, because 5e is not my ballpark. And the 7th form is the Voidwalker. Swordsmen completely mask their presence, becoming invisible to hostile creatures. You gain advantage on all attacks while using this stance. All attacks deal double the extra damage die. Lasts 3 turns, but can be extended 1 turn by succeeding a DC 15 Constitution save. By the end, you take 1 level of exhaustion. I have a similar problem with Voidwalker that I do with the Silent Knight, where both of those are not necessarily their own standalone abilities. They simply are ways to implement and increase the first form. For standard, for a 5e, for a Pathfinder, for any kind of standard tabletop, these abilities have wonderful synergy and are built very well. I think, though, for talking Demon Slayer specifically, each form needs to be its own purpose-built, designed power that is individual from the others, so that you don't have to continue, so you don't have to use them in tandem with each other, because that's just not necessarily something that you see frequently in the show, unless they're like really going balls to the wall and hurting themselves through doing it. Book did say you can in fact make your own forms. That is absolutely true. And we know that for a fact because beast breathing was a created unique form to Inosuke. Let me take a look at the dragon one, though. These have me very interested. I'm loving the hell out of these. Oh, you sent me shadow breathing, or no, snow breathing, sorry, not dragon breathing. What am I talking about? My brain is fuzzy already. And so once again, I got to remind myself before I get into any kind of critiques that you do have this set up in a straight, normal RPG leveling up system. I don't think, right, don't get me wrong, Dragon Master, I absolutely do not think that the shadow breathing was sloppy. I think that's fantastic, especially seeing that you're using it basically as an archetype for a fighter class. I think that's wonderful. I think you did a very good job with it. And I think that for, especially in 5e, and just for feeling the setting, I think it's going to work great. The only criticism that I have is it doesn't feel as Demon Slayer as I personally would like it to, because I would think that each breathing form should be a standalone power. They shouldn't have to build off of each other like that. So for the snow breathing, first form Snowfall, Frostbite, Frigid Winter, Perfect Snowflake, Freezing Point, Sub-Zero Blizzard, and Roaring Avalanche. I am liking these. I'm liking the sound of these already. Snowfall, swordsman draws and flourishes their blade. I will criticize you about your there. Gracefully before cutting through. Oh, see, then you get it right there. Come on. Through their opponent on a successful hit, I assume you can use a bonus action to deal extra 1d6 to the creature. The amount then increases, of course, as per usual. Perfect. Right to the point. Nice. Second form as Frostbite. It happens to all of us, man. The theirs are hard. Second form is Frostbite. The user steps elegantly towards the creature in a graceful dance before striking at the joints in their legs. I would leave it as at their joints. Maybe they don't have legs, and then you can't use your second form all of a sudden. The creature must take a Constitution saving throw, and that is a dexterity-based ability. On a failed save, the creature movement is cut in half for 2 turns. I like that. Nice, concise. You've got your debuff right there. I am unsure if having movement speed for 2 turns would be a desirable enough power for 5th level. Especially seeing that in Demon Slayer, it's all melee. Unless a player would come to you with some kind of archery breathing technique. If you're already kind of standing next to them, having their movement speed might not be the debuff that you're looking for, you know? Your third form is Frigid Winter. The swordsman lets out a flurry of slashes at a creature, striking their joints and slowing their movements. Creature makes a Constitution saving throw or become under the effect of the slow spell. Drayden, how does slow work in 5e? Slow works in Pathfinder by giving you the choice of either taking a move or a standard action. So you can either attack or move, but not both. If that is the case, the breathing techniques of the book. Skin. Yeah, okay. And I believe you wholeheartedly. Like I said, I'm not too terribly... What is the debuff from the slow condition? Do you know offhand, Drayden? Or Dragon Master? Any of you guys that play 5e? Oh, it's not a condition, but it does have a spell. Yeah. And like the slow spell in Pathfinder gives you either the ability to attack or move in a round, but not both. And if that's the case, I'm not sure, especially even if I'm doing it in your system, you know, where you're leveling up and you're getting one form at a time. I don't know if I would straight up put 2 debuffs right next to each other in the level progression. Let's see what our other couple are while we come back to that. We got our 4th form, Perfect Snowflake, using an attack action. User leaps toward the target. I would put a distance. Opposite of haste. Okay, so it's pretty similar. It's a good ability. I would simply switch. I might increase the ability a little bit, make it a little bit more heavy hitting, and I would put something in between to make sure that I'm not just throwing in 2 debuffs in a row. See, that's exactly right, Drake. Is you shouldn't have, while you're leveling up, when you have a leveling up system, your higher level ones should be better than your lower level ones, but they should never straight up replace them. Yes, Sloppy Lines. All the characters are swordsmen. However, there is like Inosuke's Beast Sense, the second form of beast breathing. And that simply, he stabs his swords into the ground, and it's radar. You know, it pings out and he just kind of knows where enemies are nearby. So there are lots of opportunities for, well, I don't know if I'd say no punch breathing, but it is not in the anime. I don't know if as a DM I would say there's no such thing as a punch breathing technique, there's no such thing as an archery breathing technique or anything like that. I think so long as you find balanced numbers to it, I would leave it up to the players if they really want to change up lore that much to do something. And yeah, most certainly, Travis, it is the demons that have the punch and style. They fuck you up. Sorry, I need to get back to reading fourth form. Towards the target, slashing them in a snowflake pattern. The target must make a Constitution saving throw, dexterity based as well. On a failed save, it deals an extra d6 of damage. Target cannot regain health for 3 turns. Very good. And their movement is reduced to 0. If the target succeeds, they take half damage, and their movement is only reduced to half. Your current breathing ends. I would... having speed is a bit underpowered in a straight fight, but in the context of Demon Slayer having to worry about saving lives... Yes, I most certainly, Drayden, I agree. It's not a great ability, but there is certainly use for it, and the DM will have to be on the DM will have to be on their stuff. You can't just throw in simple, straightforward fights and make a ability like that feel good. The problem that I'm starting to come into with the snow form is we have reduce movement speed by half. We have slow ability, which reduces movement speed. Which is just a better version of reducing movement speed. The fourth form has a very good straightforward ability. It's an extra damage, and it has the health regen. And then we throw in that if they fail to save as well, their movement speed is gone. I see these 3 abilities right here could all be handled simply by keeping the fourth form. And I would redo the second and third form to do something else. Perhaps the second form obscures vision. You create a little blizzard around yourself. Well, let me get through the rest of them, make sure that that's not actually an ability later on in here. You have your freezing point. Using an attack action, the swordsman lunges forward and stabs the target in a major pressure point. Creature succeeds a saving throw, dexterity based as well, good. Or take an extra d6 of damage, is considered paralyzed. Once again, movement speed reduced to 0. Allowing the user to make an additional attack is a fantastic one on that. If you want a little bit of synergy here, what you could do for fifth form is instead of actively paralyzing and reducing their movement speed, you could say if their movement speed has already been reduced to 0, then you get the extra attacks at fifth form. Your sixth form is the Sub-Zero Blizzard. Swordsman centers themselves and focuses before drawing their sword swiftly and letting out a barrage of slashes. User is able to make attacks against any targets within a 20-foot radius until they miss or run out of movement speed, each strike dealing an extra d8 of damage. For these kind of abilities where you get an attack until you miss, there needs to be a penalty to subsequent attacks. Kite in the My Hero Academia campaign, of course, when he has just now unlocked his hit until you miss, it's a -5 penalty on each hit. That is a Pathfinder standard to begin with, but it can be reduced. For the point of this, seeing that you don't get it until 18th level, and you really want it to feel, super solid and really good, you can put no minus on it so long as each target has to be a new target. So that way, it's either until you miss or until you run out of targets right nearby. Or simply a -2 penalty to swing stacks up more than fast enough to make you miss by any reasonable amount of hits depending on the kind of enemies that you're fighting. It's a great ability. I absolutely love abilities like this. They feel so fucking good to do in-game. But there needs to be a limit to how many times you can hit based either off of how many enemies are there or a stacking penalty to your attack rolls. Just to make sure that you don't have the problem where a player puts everything they have into be really good at hitting things, even though they've got maybe low damage. And then they bust out that ability, and everybody at the table sits there for 3 hours watching this dude roll until every enemy is dead, you know? Max amount based on charisma, max amount based on dexterity is what I would recommend, since every other ability is dexterity based on that. Targets equal to your dex. That would be perfectly good. I still think one attack per target within the 20-foot radius for an 18th level ability would feel a lot better. If I was to be making this, if I was to take this into your guys' poll is in, and it's 100% for Demon Slayer. Not too terribly surprised. I would start it out as something Drayden. I would start it when if you first unlocked 6th form instead of unlocking all the other forms first, and I would then say, yeah, it's a number of targets equal to your dexterity. Then the next level, it's a number of targets equal to double your dexterity. Then I would say it is every target within the 20-foot radius, and then I would say it's every target, but you start taking the -2 penalty per swing kind of thing. And so on and so forth, as you level it up specifically. Your 7th form is the Roaring Avalanche. It sounds super cool. Using an attack action, the user becomes an unstoppable force of nature that runs through whatever it is in their way, converting all their extra attacks into one. Stores and moves in a 60-foot long, 20-foot wide line, hitting anything in range, dealing an extra d8 of damage for every extra attack they possess. Premium. That is a perfect ability right there. You know what? Since now I've got to make a Demon Slayer system because you guys have voted on it, I'm gonna take both of these and I'm going to give them kind of, you know, all first level form abilities. I'm certainly gonna change up on the snow breathing all of the movement speed penalties, and I would throw in different styles of penalties. And different styles of penalties or different styles of buffs to you. You can have a very easy one here where you start getting some synergy through it, where your freezing point does extra damage, or you get extra attacks based on how debuffed the enemy is, or how many stacks of freeze or something like that the enemy gets. Your Sub-Zero Blizzard in that 20-foot radius, say, creates an ice sheet. Your 2nd form allows you to move on ice at an increased movement speed and at no penalty of slipping. So on and so forth, you know. I'll work on this a little bit, maybe talk to you a little bit on the Discord about balancing out some of these. But yeah, guys, I think absolutely I'm loving these. Demon Slayer will be the choice. Let's go on ahead and let's start some things here. We got snow breathing. Jesus Christ, I can't spell anything. We got shadow breathing. I'm going to switch this over, actually, from an Excel sheet. I'm going to go to a Word document so that I can type on this easier while I'm at work. The Excel documents do not work well for me. All right. We got our breathing styles: snow, shadow. Of course, there is fire, water, lightning. There was the mirror ability. I'm going to most certainly take that from you guys and expand on that. If you want, I can send you the book I used to make the breathing techniques so you can see how the classes work. I would appreciate that, Dragon Master. Thank you. The School of Sound, I like that. A poison is good. Wind, fantastic, nice, classic. You have your beast breathing. You have skibidi-bop-bop. God, why am I blanking on what I was just about to say? Earth. Throw some more at me. Let's give me some good. The chain breathing, that's right. Let's get a good base to start with here. Cherry blossom. Interesting. I like the idea. Expand on that a little bit for me. What does the cherry blossom chain do? We got poison written down. Thank you, Shadow Inferno. Air, I'm gonna put that right into wind. Paper breathing like an origami style. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I'm gonna need something for this cherry blossom. I'm not exactly sure where to go with that idea, though. It sounds interesting. Thank you, Dragon Master. I will look in that later. Oh, asking about a poison breathing? Well, you can very easily do things where it sets up long-term damages, long-term debuffs. Steel would focus on actual blade techniques. Alright, I'm going to keep that. I'm going to tuck that down there. A life breathing, is that going to be our healing domain? Thunder breathing, I think before we get into like hybrid things, I think leaving sound, leaving lightning is going to be just fine. A magma breathing, we can call it a volcano. Ugh. Terrible spelling jobs. We'll go with a volcano on there so it doesn't feel like better fire, you know? We can then add in different kind of hybrid abilities with that. Cherry Blossom, similar to that one guy's Bankai from Bleach. Unfortunately, Bleach is another one that I have not seen. In eruption breathing, I think eruption, if I'm going to call it a volcano, I think we'll put the magma, the eruption style kind of stuff right into that. I'm not sure if a healing type class works well in there. I will play around a little bit with the life abilities and kind of see. I might not make it a healing class now that you bring that up. That's a good call. But maybe more of something that uses life energy. So perhaps borrows might from nearby life. A nature, easy. That's classic. I like that. If our life class is much more about maybe life steal abilities, and maybe like God, what is it? Dragon Ball Z's Spirit Bomb, you know, where you borrow from nearby life forms. Bottom. So you could accidentally or intentionally absolutely hurt your friends. An illusion. Call it mist. I like the name of mist, but I want to put down illusion to make sure that I understand and remember what it was I was talking about there. Angel breathing, just straight being the opposite of demon. I feel, Drayden, like that might be a little on the nose. You know? I feel like that might just be kind of like the obvious answer to the solution. Let's see here. Oh, it's all good, man. I'll take the good ones and I'll tell you why I don't think the other ones are in there. Ah, thank you. Sun, moon, water, flower. Or not, I already got water in there. Sun, moon, love, and flower. And I'm going to put on these cannon. So I can just simply look up what they do and go from there. I might also do it in the sense, though, where I've got these in here. But maybe I just straight up don't let players take any of the cannon abilities, you know? Maybe we go really crazy fun with this and make everybody have to do their own one. Whoops. A mind-breathing technique. Sloppy lines, we're not doing time breathing. No time. No. I don't do timey-wimey bullshit. I'm not a good enough writer to make time travel work, or any kind of time-altering effects work. However, something where you do a perceived time difference, like a genjutsu from Naruto, we could make work, and we could put that into this mind-breathing ability. Because that is very easy for me to do as a DM, where it more slows an enemy down, sets things straight. A serpent. I like serpent. There is a world where I might just combine serpent and poison. Of course, no serpents are poisonous, but everybody likes to confuse venom and poison together. Constellation breathing. Forms based on the constellations? Ooh. I'm not so sure. Nebulous. Necromancy. Interesting. I'm not sure. The problem being, right, when I'm thinking of like the Demon Slayer people, they're supposed to be super good. And necromancy is like super not good. And you're going up against the demons and everything. I'm not sure if I would throw necromancy in, or any kind of form of necromancy besides something like a lifesteal ability for the purpose, or might siphoning, where you steal opponents' strengths as you hit them. I'm not sure that I would throw that into this game. What is Zodiaca? Like based on your zodiac signs? I feel like I should stay away from things that interest 14-year-old girls. You know. Sorry. Sorry if you're one of the astrology people. I understand. I simply am not. Each of the protagonist slayers have an incredibly enhanced sense, hearing, smell, touch, etc., or hard head. I said the players get that unique talent, sense like equilibrium, can't fall over. I am liking that. A dream breathing, I think I would throw into the mind. Being in a dream breathing thing, I think that would be maybe even an illusionist, very hallucinogenic, very kind of messing with their perceptions, and so I think I would put that into the mind. String breathing, like making enemies, okay, like a puppeteer. I'm down for that. I think I'm down. But I want to go back to what Drayden's saying for just a second here, because that is very important as well. You have an enhanced sense. And there should be some kind of talent associated with that. I just want to put that down as a note. Body breathing, pushing the body beyond its limits. That's a tough one, because I totally understand where you're coming from with that, and it makes sense. However, I do feel as well that literally all of the breathing techniques in their own part at base are pushing the body beyond its limits and are the manifestation of that. So I don't know if I could create a class based solely off of enhancing your own limits, you know? It is a rather interesting concept, Dragon Master. I don't spend any time thinking about constellations and stuff like that. PJ Boy, give me a defining of blood breathing. When I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking kind of what I've already put in for the life breathing technique. Yeah, I didn't do the ice. Put the snow down, didn't put down my ice. I was the one who said it. Like, that's a very fair point. If you could give me a little something on that blood breathing so that I can maybe understand how it would differentiate. Bone breathing being a tank style. I like the name for that. Better than my turtle style. Using fist fighting styles as an enhanced body durability. Yeah, I do like that. You can also use that in the sense of straight up blocking and negating hits. Anything since that. Did we put insect on the list? We got serpent. I don't think we have insect, but that's a good idea as well. And avian. I'm not sure. I'll add fish. I'll take a little time later and maybe put some of these out, because there's some of these where it's like, you know, serpent and poison, generally speaking, as far as RPGs go, those most certainly could wind up being basically the same. And I'm unsure with beast breathing being a canon style, if throwing in insect breathing and fish breathing, mammal breathing, or whatever specifically might not quite be what we're after. Maybe controlling your or other blood to use an attack more damage. Use yourself or your opponents to hit harder. Like Vlad King's kind of power style, where you physically take their blood and hurt, or your own blood, and like make daggers out of it and stuff and hurt them with it. Or more like blood bending from like Avatar, which would fit into our puppeteer kind of style thing. Well, you know, it's Retro Night, of course, is one of those things. I'm not sure with how we're going and the interesting ideas that we're having. I'm not sure if I would fully allow any player to take any of the canon ones, especially because I'm not even sure if I'm pretty sure some of these canon ones we haven't actually seen all 7 forms of, which I don't want to try to. I'm not going to pretend to know the full 7 forms of beast breathing if they haven't been shown to me. I'm not going to say what the 7th form is if they're keeping that in their back pocket for somewhere down the line in the manga. That's going to fuck me up because I'm 100% not going to get it right, you know? With how their swords are made of special demon-killing material, it's reasonable to believe you can make other weapons besides swords. Yeah, and so we can totally have breathing abilities. We could have them independent of the weapon. Fire and lightning being thrown around light is merely visualizations of the slashes. It's kind of visualizations of the slashes, but we totally saw when he was doing the water wheel and it mixed with fire, you know, in the anime, and it went up, it set all the spider webs on fire and burned them away. So there is some respect of, yes, this element is physically manifesting as well as just being a visual effect, right? Yeah, PJ Boy, if it's more like a bloodbending, we're gonna slap that right into the puppeteer then. I love the idea, but to make sure that I don't write down the same thing 8 times. You know? And whereas there is, of course, Drayden, the manifestation as well, you have to take into account, like with the beast breathing, the radar ping that he gets, it's not a manifestation of the power. He actually does see and know where this enemy is and what's going on far away without him being able to actually see it. Cherry Blossom could be area of effect type breathing, just like the area could cause damage over time, cause debuffs in the area, or even buffs to the allies. I'm liking this. I'm liking this idea. I'm liking that. Slow damage. I like that. I'm liking that. Thank you, Static. Now some of the things here. Let's do some senses, guys. Let's do some of these enhanced senses, because that was a very good point that they do. So you can choose, of course, your sight, smell, hearing, balance. What other kind of things can we do? We can throw in a premonition style. Roll it kind of like a spidey sense. Touch, very good, perfect. Instinct, yeah. Actually, I think that's probably a better name than premonition. What other senses do we have to increase, lads? We could do a physical toughness sense. Knowing that your limits are just a little higher than what most people think they are, so you can push through just a little further, perhaps. Direction. We can throw in luck. I'm good for luck, man. I love that. Absolutely. The repod art. Yeah. Sorry, I'm terrible with names, so I need to read them out loud a couple of times. Memory, fantastic one. Very good. I like that. Yeah, direction could actually... Direction does have a little bit more of a... yeah, you could use that for some absolute accuracy. You have your perception of distance. That could help you out somehow. I'm not exactly sure how. And the repod art. Thanks for following, lad. Glad to have you along. The luck was a very primo throw in there. I like that. Painting. I like painting. Emotions for your enhanced sense, like serenity or fury. I am super down for that. Absolutely. Serenity, we throw justice in there. Have you reinvented BESM yet? What is BESM? Love is a style, but it's also a canon style, and I'm not sure that I know anything about it. So I might just, I'm pretty fond of the idea of being like, yes, these are the canon abilities, but you can't choose them. Go somewhere else. Sense of charisma. We can throw that in. I can see maybe what I can do with that. I might rename it. Oh, big eyes, small mouth. Yeah, okay. We have not. I have not looked into that. I might have to look that up. Pronounced theropod. Oh, okay. Yeah. Christ, I can't believe that I didn't see that. Theropod. I keep looking for the in it. What's your favorite theropod? I actually was studying paleontology when I was back in college. I feel like a real idiot now. Yeah, let's take charisma and actually do personality. Have that kind of cult of personality idea going there. I like that. High damage tolerance, I'd call that sense of endurance. Yeah, that's true, Retro Knight. And the problem with throwing it with canon things that I don't see fully, if I don't know all 7 forms in the canon, I would be very hesitant to make my own. Adrenaline is a good one. Just because that immediately throws in the problem where if I make something, if you know, love doesn't have all 7 forms fleshed out, and I flesh out 7 forms of the love style, and then they come back later in the manga and tell me what they are. Oh God, I'm not going to get it right. You know, it's going to be 2 totally different things. I feel like it would just ruin everything for me. Oh yeah, everybody loves the Tyrannosaurs. The ankylosaurs are some of my favorite. I'm out here in the western side of Colorado. I worked with our local dinosaur museum for a good couple of years, and our local ankylosaur is Mymor pelta. And I've pulled out so many fucking chunks of that dinosaur out of the ground. I almost hate him, but he's also my favorite. I guess it is finished, isn't it? Yeah, I gotta work a good little bit on. I discovered a stegosaur plate out in the field. Got to work on digging that up, and I was part of the discovery of the 5th ever Apatosaurus skull. Got my name on a little science journal and all that BS. I didn't find it. It was actually part of what our dinosaur museum does. I'm going to take a bit here, guys. Part of what my dinosaur museum does is we allow children and, you know, families to come in, and you pay a little bit of money, and the paleontologists and us volunteers and interns and stuff take you out to the dig site, and we give you an area to dig in. Now, usually with little kids, we give them the upper strata where there are no bones, and they actually just kind of clear out the area for the real people to come in and work on the area that actually do produce fossils. The kids don't always pay attention to that, and what happened in this apatosaur instance is this 5-year-old kid was out with his grandma, and he was digging, and we gave him the upper strata to dig in so he wouldn't actually destroy anything. And I know it's a little messed up to do, but it's what you do. He ignored us and went down into the lower strata where the bones are actually present, busted right into this apatosaur's lower jaw, broke the entire thing off, and threw it away in the talus pile. And I had to go over the side of the hill into where all the talus was getting thrown over, and I dug for 4 hours finding this lower jaw, man. And when I finally found it, we got over there, we put it together, we had that whole thing excavated within the next like 2 weeks. We were there night and day, just fucking going at it. And luckily, we didn't run into anything besides, there were vertebrae that are related, but might not necessarily have been articulated. They're still looking at that. And yeah, we got that thing the hell out of the field, because the area it's in it's not the best representative rock in the world. It's pretty chossy. But so yeah, 5th ever Apatosaur skull. I gotta help excavate and discover because some little kid ignored where we told him to dig and busted his fucking nose off. It was a damn fine play though. Yeah, the kid had no idea too, and it was like, it's one of those things, you know, the kids a lot of times, you can run into like small bits of bone or like the beginning of the bone, and it's totally understanding that a kid or someone new or whatever will break into that and destroy a little bit of it because they don't quite understand that they've hit the pay dirt, you know? But man, that jaw was so obvious. And I felt really bad. His grandma threw a fit too. She was like she turned into a bit of a Karen, where we were like, hey, this is an amazing discovery. We're getting you ice cream after this, but you and the kid got to go like to the other side of the quarry and dig over there because we need to put everybody on this because this is super important. And she kind of freaked out at us. She's like, what do you mean my kid can't continue to excavate this one of a kind, this one of 5 artifacts in the world so far? And it took a lot of talking down to get that grandma to finally walk away. I'm going to throw dinosaur breathing in. We've talked about it enough. That's going to be a breathing style. Absolutely. And yeah, that apatosaur never stood a chance. It's a full adult too, man. He's a beautiful lad. The Chad toddler. Theropod art. Do you do paleo art? It's an excellent question. It is in your name. coal breathing. Define. Give me some boundaries for coal breathing. I'm a little lost on that one, Drayden. Specific type like beetle breathing that mainly focuses on defense and heavy strikes. We do have currently the bone breathing set as a defensive style. I'm totally down to have some more defensive styles though. And I am not opposed to doing a to having it continue getting what am I doing? Laying traps like fire embers. And coal breathing. We could call that maybe industrial breathing? An industrial art? Where it's maybe more traps and mechanisms that you put your power into. I think I like the idea of that. I'm just not quite sure off of coal if I can get 7 specific and good feeling powers. Occasionally I do. Primarily D&D scaling art. T-Rex lizard folk in one of your games. Oh hell yeah! The raptors, man. I got a big soft spot for raptors. I buy fossils relatively frequently. One of my favorites. I got a little raptor tooth. A fella. He's Velociraptor adjacent, but not on the same timeline. He was found over in the Appalachians. I don't think all have 7 breathing forms, but I do think that for the purpose of a D&D campaign, I'm going to uniform it and say 7, you know? Do we want to call it Do we want to call it gunpowder, or do we just want to say explosive type? Some have 4 to 7. Yeah, and just for the purpose of balancing, I don't know if I feel comfortable leaving some with just 4 powers. You know? I don't know if I as a DM trying to set this stuff up would be able to set it up appropriately. Yeah, and of course that would Dragon Master, that'd have to be how it would be set up, of course, is if it's got 4 specific forms, they would be very powerful forms. If it had 7, each one would be individually a little weaker. But I think for the purpose of how I'm going to have this set up, where each form has kind of a level 1 ability, and then you level it up as you spend more time on it, I don't foresee myself being able to make it work out properly. And I think just it would open up too much for some of them to be just inherently more powerful than others. Now I'll spend a little time on this. I'll spend time on this as I do at work, BSing around on my laptop and stuff, and typing out things for Dungeons and Dragons, and I will see what I can do. There's probably a good couple of these where I could come up with just 4 or 5 powers and make them a little inherently better or something, and then keep the 7 to maybe more of a formula. I think we'll see. Base value depending on number of forms. See, it would have to be not only a different base value, but it would have to have different scaling as well, because each one of these breathing forms you can inherently make more powerful. You know, to say that Water Wheel, when he very first learns it and uses it on the first demon, is just as powerful as the last time he's used it, is completely a false equivalence, you know. Whereas it is the same technique. He has gotten, you know, the characters get stronger and their techniques get better because they get stronger. And so I have to have some kind of scaling that goes not only with the characters but with the technique itself, to make sure that the techniques scale properly as the game goes and as they spend time on it. I believe they are. I believe it's 1 breathing technique per deal. Oh, it's not? I know, alright, so there is where he has a little bit of fire, he's got the water and the fire. I thought that was because he's the super special main character. Are there any examples besides Tanjiro? Because I feel like, yeah, see, I feel like he gets that because he's the super special main character. And it could be something to do with the Black Blade that they get. But I think for the purposes of this campaign and for this system, limiting them to a single breathing technique would be very helpful. And wouldn't only be helpful, it'd be easier on me as the DM. It would make more sense. Whereas these guys are totally the main characters of the story, that does not mean that they have to supersede and take over the position of main character from Tanjiro, you know? Just like how in the My Hero Academia campaign, Xiao Fei is not going to wind up fighting Shigaraki in the final war arc fight, right? That's still Midoriya's job. But being that it is our D&D campaign, the focus is not going to wind up being on Shigaraki. It's going to wind up being on someone else. It's going to wind up being on the Acadian for Kite, you know, kind of thing. Short style dance breath. I like the dance right off the gate. What does short style mean? What is a breathless? And it's that kind of anti-magic. I like that. Yeah, next session we kill Midoriya, and then I totally have to eat my words as I somehow have to build my fucking quirk up into a way to fight Shigaraki. It'd probably go to Walker, honestly. I think Walker would be much better for it than Zhao would. A music style? I like... Did I already put in music? Hold on a second here. There's a sound style. Yeah, I think I would. I think I would leave sound and music as the same. Story incorporation is similar. I just think learning multiple forms would have been for more than just Tanjiro. Sad to hear they don't teach each other. Would be a cool story beats. It would be an interesting thing. I fear, Drayden, that if I was to allow that, if I was to put that in to a game, that what would inherently wind up happening... Why is the chat box not going? Oh, that's why. Weren't set above. I feel inherently what would happen is the inevitable overdone anime where the power levels get so ridiculous and the number of abilities that a character has gets so overwhelming that there's no more stakes and it doesn't feel fun anymore. I think the biggest benefit to the Demon Slayer is that you are limited to your single style, and that does have its inherent downfalls and, you know, hard walls in it. It's not gonna be more shockwave. Music could be more of a bardic kind of style, more of an inspiration style. I'm down for that, actually. I like that. I'm gonna add music back on here. I like that. You have convinced me. Now, as far as... Let's take a second here, and let's do... maybe some talking about how we want to do leveling up. So, how I would like to do it is... Oh, my playgroup inherently puts a narrative before being OP. Yeah, and if you got a group like that, man, power to you. You are very lucky to have that. I do not have that in every campaign that we're in. A good chunk of our campaigns, a good chunk of our players, super good about that. But every now and then, you get a player, and you know I still love them. I still want to play with them and everything. Don't get me wrong. But they want to roll a bunch of dice and add up a bunch of numbers and feel powerful. And I completely understand that line of thinking as well, and I don't want to discourage anybody from playing that way. It just means that when I go into making these kind of systems and making these extra rule sets, I am very cautious about just giving people the ability to do what they desire to do. With leveling up, I think what we're going to do is have them start, maybe choose is the right word. Choose a breathing style at level 1 and beginning at level 3. They get their first breathing technique. That then puts onto a totally... Oh. I'm not gonna reference time again. First breathing technique comes through. Players can then train their breathing style. Or to enhance existing forms. And we will worry about scaling, damage, buffs and debuffs, as well as special effects. Yeah, absolutely, Dragon Master. I will look into that book here later. Sun breathing is the ultimate, I guess would make it the worst. We have those are canon ones, man. Yeah, I am most used to Pathfinder 1E. I do have the core rulebook for Pathfinder 2E. I just haven't spent that much time reading into it because I know standard Pathfinder so well. And I've spent a good chunk of time with Tafa and with some of the other DMs at D&D House and some of my other friends, really spending time making new classes and balancing the hell out of them, gameplaying those things. And so, yeah, going through with this, I think I'm going to stick to Pathfinder 1, just because it's what I know the best. Oh, yeah. You know, 2E is supposed to be mostly compatible with 1E. It's just completely based off of a feat system. It makes your classes, I don't know, I've read into Pathfinder 2E a good little deal. And it's weird how they've opened up every class while also restricting what you can do when you build your character. I feel like even though 2E, the whole point of it was supposed to open Pathfinder up even more to your character creation, I feel like they went a little bit towards the 5e route of things, of simplifying the overall game and simplifying the totality of your options that you can build as a player, which is something that I like giving players as many options as possible while still having the rules in place, you know? But alright, guys, and I think we got a good beginning here. I'm going to spend some time on this. If we don't see each other Monday for the My Hero thing with Tafa running, you guys will see me back here like this, and hopefully I will have had time at work to go through, and I will start putting on some generic style bonuses, start refining maybe a good couple of these, putting on some of these abilities, and putting on some more of exactly how I want the system to run. But I think for right now, it's a little early for a normal session to close out, but I am just one guy. I think I'm going to call it a night here, guys. You all be sure to have a good night, and thank you. This has been a very wonderful time setting up all of these, and I am looking forward to continuing this. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow on New Albion and Wednesday on Mad King. We're doing some fun things. New Albion, we're in a little bit of a lull, but Mad King is getting ready to go right into some of the heat on Issa's storyline. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night, everybody.